everyone. Today we have a lecture, the topic of which is teaching reading. At the lecture, we'll discuss the following questions. Reading as an aim and the means of teaching and learning a foreign language. The content of teaching reading. Some difficulties pupils have in learning to read in the English language, linguistic and extra linguistic. How to teach reading, and mistakes and how to correct them. So let's start with the first question. Reading as a name and the means of teaching and learning a foreign language. Reading is one of the main skills that a pupil must acquire in the process of mastering a foreign language at school. The syllabus for foreign languages lists reading as one of the leading language activities to be developed. It runs: to read without a dictionary, text containing familiar grammar material, no more than 4-6 unfamiliar words per 100 words of the text, the meaning of which, as a rule, should be clear from the context of familiar word-building elements. This is the requirement for the 9th year of school. Pupils are to read with the help of a dictionary, easy text containing familiar grammar material, and 6-8 unfamiliar words per 100 words of the text in the 11th year school. Therefore, reading is one of the practical aims of teaching a foreign language in schools. Reading, of course, is of great educational importance. As reading is a means of communication, people get information they need from books, journals, magazines, newspapers. Reading, of course, develops pupils' intelligence. The content of text, the ideological and political spirit influence pupils. But reading is not only an aim in itself. It is also a means of learning a foreign language. When reading a text, the pupil reviews sounds and letters, vocabulary and grammar, memorizes the spelling of the words, the meaning of the words and word combinations, and also the students review grammar material. And in this way, they perfect their command of the target language. The more the pupils read, the better their retention of the linguistic material is. If the teacher instructs the pupils in good reading and they can read with sufficient fluency and complete comprehension tasks, the teacher helps them to acquire speaking and writing skills as well. Reading is therefore both an end to be attained and a means to achieve that end. The second question of our lecture to be discussed is the content of teaching reading. Here we'll discuss such questions as why teach reading, what kind of reading should students do, the topics and types of reading texts. So the first one is why teach reading. There are many reasons. Firstly, the students want to be able to read text in English, either for their career, for study purposes, or simply for pleasure. Reading text also provide good models for English writing. Reading text provide opportunities to study language, vocabulary, grammar, punctuation, and the way we contrast sentences, paragraphs, and text. Lastly, good reading text can introduce interesting topics, stimulate discussion, excite imaginative responses. What kind of reading should students do? The greatest controversy is on whether the text should be authentic or not. This is because people have worried about more traditional language teaching material, which tend to look artificial and use oversimplified language which any native speaker would find comical and untypical. If you give low-level students a copy of The Times or The Guardian, they will probably not understand them at all. The balance has to be made between real English on one hand and students' capabilities on the other. There is some authentic written material which beginner students can understand to some degree: menus, timetables, signs, and basic instructions. The topics and types of reading text are worth considering too. Here we need to find the answer for two questions. Should our students read factual encyclopedia texts, or should we expose them to novels or short stories? Should they read timetables or menus, or we can offer them business letters and newspaper articles? This depends on who the students are. If they are business people, if they are science students, if they are students of primary, secondary, or high school. Among the things the teacher might want her students to read are magazine articles, letters, stories, menus, advertisements, reports, play extracts, recipes, instructions, poems, and reference materials. We need also to discuss a very important question, such as some difficulties pupils have in learning to read in English, linguistic and extra linguistic. We may say that without any doubt, reading in the English language is one of the most difficult things, because there are 26 letters and 146 graphemes, which represent 46 phonemes. Indeed, the English alphabet presents many difficulties to Kazakh and Russian speaking students, because their alphabet differs greatly from that of the English lesson. In teaching a pupil to read English words, much more attention should be given to those letters which occur in both languages but symbolize entirely different sounds. For example, letters H or P. Some students mix them with the letters in their own language alphabet, like N or R. The teacher cannot teach pupils all the existing rules and exceptions for reading English words, nor is it necessary to do so. When learning English, pupils are expected to assimilate the following rules of reading: how to read stressed vowels in open and closed syllables and before letter R, how to read letter combinations A, Y, O, 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 N, O, W, the consonants C, S, K, G, C, H, S, H, T, H, N, G, C, K, and such combinations as T, I, O, N, T, S, I, O, N, O, U, S. The rules are not numerous, but they are very important to the development of reading skills. The most difficult thing in learning to read is to get information from a sentence or a paragraph on the basis of the knowledge of structural signals and not only the meaning of the words. Pupils often ignore grammar and try to understand what they read, relying on their knowledge of autonomous words. So that means they try to understand the meaning of the sentence, getting the meaning of every separate word, not paying attention to the grammar types. Pupils sometimes find it difficult to pick out topical sentences in the text which express the main ideas. To make the process of reading easier, new words, phrases, and sentence patterns should be learned orally before pupils are asked to read them. We'll discuss how to teach reading a little bit later. So when pupils start reading, they know how to pronounce the words, the phrases, and the sentences, and are familiar with their meaning. In order to find the most effective ways of teaching, the teacher should know the difficulties pupils may have. And the very important question to be discussed today is how to teach reading. Here we need to speak about the role of the teacher. There are several roles. The first one is organizer. We need to tell students exactly what their reading purpose is and give them clear instruction about how to achieve it and how long they have to do it. The teacher must be a kind of observer. When we ask students to read on their own, we need to give them space to do so. While students are reading, we can observe their progress, since this will give us valuable information about how well they are doing individually and collectively, and will tell us whether to give them some extra time or to move to organizing feedback. A very important role is feedback organizer. When our students have completed the task, we will lead a feedback session to check that they have completed the task successfully. We may start by having them compare their answers in pair by sharing their knowledge. And a role of a prompter. When students have read a text, we can prompt them to notice language features in the text. We may also ask controls direct them to certain features of the text construction, clarifying what reading skills should students acquire. They need to be able to scan the text for particular bits of information they're searching for. The skill means that they do not have to read every word and line. Students should be able to skim a text as if they were casting their eyes over its surface to get a general idea of what it is about. Whether students scan or skim depends on what kind of text they are reading and what they want to get out of it. Reading for detailed comprehension, whether looking for detailed information on a language, must be seen by students something different from scanning and skimming. When looking for details, we want our students to concentrate on the minute of what they are reading. One of the teacher's main functions when training students to read is not only to persuade them for the advantages of skimming and scanning, but also to make them see that the way they read is vitally important. What are the principles behind the teaching of reading? The first one, reading is not a passive skill. In fact, it is an incredible active occupation. To do it successfully, we have to understand what the words mean, understand the arguments, and work out if we do agree with it. Students need to be engaged with what they are reading. If the students are not engaged with the reading text, not actively interested in what they are reading, it is less likely that they benefit from it. Students should be engaged to respond to the content of the reading text, not just to the language. It is very important to study reading text for the way they use the language, the number of paragraphs they contain, relative clauses, linking words, etc. But the meaning, the message of the text is just as important, and we must give our students a chance to respond. We should allow them to express their feeling about the topic. Number 5. Prediction is a major factor in reading. When we read text in our own language, we frequently have a good idea of content before we actually read it. Book covers give us an idea of what is in the book. Paragraphs and headlines hint at what articles are about, and reports look like reports before we read a single word. The teacher should give students hints so that they can predict what's coming to. It will make them better and more engaged readers. Number 6. Match the task to the topic. Once a decision has been taken about the reading text that the students are going to read, we need to choose good reading task, the right kind of questions, engaging and useful puzzles. Good teachers exploit the reading text to the full. Any reading text is full of sentences, words, ideas, descriptions, etc. It doesn't make sense just to get students to read it and then drop to move on to something else. Good teachers integrate the reading text into interesting class sequences, using the topic for discussion and further tasks, using the language for study and later activation. Remember, the most interesting text can be undermined by asking boring and inappropriate questions. Of course, everything is not so easy as it seems to be, and now we need to speak about mistakes and how to correct them. Ways of correcting students. Before correcting a student, you need to answer 5 key questions. What kind of mistake has been made? Grammar, spelling, pronunciation. What should they do about it? Correct or not correct? When should it be corrected? Now, later in the lesson, next lesson. How should it be corrected? Which technique would work best? Who should correct it? Self-correction, peer correction, teacher correction. Stages. First, we need to define what's there, what's the mistake. Then decide if it needs correcting. Decide when it needs correcting. Decide who should correct it. Decide how it should be corrected. Indicate an error has been made. Correct it and reinforce the correction. Following techniques can be used for correcting students' mistakes. Finger correction, when we show the students with gestures how or what was wrong when reading. Repeat sentence up to error. Echo with surprised intonation, and ask a question. You see that reading is so delicious, but you as teachers need to do a lot to for the students to see that it is really so. For further studying of the topic, you may look through the following books that are given in the list of literature and internet resources. Hope this lecture was very useful for you, and you will use the material from this lecture while doing the task of practical sessions.